My name is Layla Barnes, and I'm from Southampton County, and I'm for the soil because I'm a new sixth-generation farmer, and I farm peanuts and watermelons, and that's where the bugs live.
Here we go with another episode of For the Soil, a Conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii, and joining me, Eric Benfelt with Virginia Cooperative Extension Community Viability, and of course, Mary Sketch Bryant with the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. We've got a lot of ground to cover, pun intended. Mary, would you reintroduce our returning guest today?
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, we have Rick Clark with us again, and I just encourage anyone who wasn't able to listen to the first episode to go back and listen to that for a lot of great knowledge. But Rick is a fifth-generation farmer in Warren County, Indiana, and farms no-till regenerative organic at a large scale, and works with a lot of farmers around the country and speaks around the country to share his soil health stories and perspectives. So grateful to have you here for a second episode, Rick.
Hey, it's awesome. Thank you. I really had fun on the first one. And yes, like you said, please go back, not only listen to mine, but go back, start at the beginning of the work you folks have done, and it'll be great education. Thanks for having me back.
Rick, for those folks who were not able to listen to the first episode of this podcast, go back and, if you would, just kind of describe in big terms your farming operation. It's not a small operation, is it?
Yeah, it's fairly large. We're 6,000 plus acres of certified organic. We've got livestock in cattle and sheep. I think we're heading into our seventh year of organic, and it's been quite a journey. And believe me, we're not. Please, no one ever call me an expert. We are far from being experts, but we are learning every year. Weeds, as most organic producers know, are the biggest problem, and we're still working on ways to combat that, but we're getting better.
And Rick, in the last episode, you mentioned the importance of context and commitment, and you also mentioned how today's financial situation and what you anticipate the future being. I welcome you to give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you've got to give the American farmer a huge pat on the back. They do a tremendous job of growing crops. They do. They grow great soybeans and they grow great corn. And sometimes when you do that so well, you oversupply the industry and prices go down, and that's where we are right now. So we've got to keep our heads up. This is going to be a tough couple of years, folks. I do not, and I'm not a marketing expert, but my opinion is I do not see these prices rebounding for a couple of years. Now, and unless we have a large weather event, like a huge drought for the U.S. farmer next year, that's going to change that. But if we don't have that type of situation, it's going to be tough sledding here for a couple of years. So now is the time to slowly start implementing these principles of soil health. Maybe, don't get crazy here and don't go from doing nothing to decreasing 50%, thinking you're going to be able to roll with that. That's not going to work like that. So we have to make sure that we're doing the principles and the systematic approach for the right reasons.
In Rick, as you work with farmers around the country and in working for them to build in those soil health principles, amid these challenges, there's also mental health challenges across the farming community. How do you, address that in your work with producers?
Yeah, it's close to my heart here because I lost someone to suicide, and you have to pay attention. You have to try to see the warning signs. I miss them. But this is reality, folks. This type of situation that we're heading into is the financial burden is more than most people can handle. So we have to pay close attention to our loved ones, make sure, their moods aren't changing. I don't know what all the signs are for that, but please go online, look it up. I'm just concerned that the farming community is going to see a rise in suicides. I'm concerned on that.
We're talking today with Rick Clark. He is in Warren County, Indiana. And I want to make our listeners aware of his website. It's farmgreen.land. That's farmgreen.land. And there's a lot of resources available there at that website. And Rick, I want to ask you a farmer question.
Yep.
How in the world do you grow soybeans organically?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking 90 something percent of soybeans in the United States are grown, Roundup ready.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so how do you do it?
It's hard. It's very hard. Sometimes we don't do it very well, but you have to have a good cover crop base, meaning you need to have um, you need to have biomass. And when you can roll that biomass down, you create a mat, a mulch, a thatch, whatever you want to call it, and your soybeans will grow through that. And then you try to suppress weeds in that manner. Now, we can do a pretty good job in the first 30 to 45 days of that soybean's life. It's the back end that we struggle with, because what happens is you hope that your microbial biome is working in high gear. So when you roll that mat down, you now have introduced that layer to the microbes that come from the bottom up, and they start consuming that biomass. And once they get a hole in it and that sunlight can come in, guess what happens? Now the weeds are starting to grow, and we get late season flushes of foxtail, and we get late season flushes of giant ragweed and mare's tail. So at that point, then another tool we have in our toolbox is a weed zapper. It's an electricity. It's a bar that runs out in front. It's copper. It's got electricity. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of conventional guys using these zappers now because their chemistry is not killing water hemp, and they're going out in GMO fields that have been sprayed 4 or 5 times, and they're running weed zappers trying to clean these fields up. So we are heading into, I think, we are really starting to see the chemistry not work on these weeds. We're really seeing it this year. I think we're probably going to start to see more metal involved in raising soybeans in this country to control these weeds.
Now, Rick, this might be a little bit of a shift in focus, but Virginia has been really promoting soil health for at least that terminology for 11 years with the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service. But the more conversations that I've had with some of the soil health farmers that have been at the forefront, then they've made connections with human health as well. The idea of
Right.
uh, the need for the biomass for organic matter. Similarly, what we need for our human guts. I know you've been on a journey as well.
Yeah, that the human health is very dear to my heart. I want to talk about human health in 2 ways. The first way and they're both correct. And one's not better than the other, but the first way is nutrient density. Everyone wants more nutrient density, and that should be the case. If you look at our food 40 years ago, if you look at an orange that we grew 40 years ago and you compare it to an orange today, to get the same amount of nutrients from that orange of 40 years ago, you need to eat 8 oranges today. That should not be accepted. That kind of a decline in nutrient density should not be allowed. So that's number one. That's how most people look at human health. I also look at human health from the aspect of taking away all of the caustic pesticides and herbicides and insecticides, and not getting the humans around this stuff. This is dangerous. Um, a lot of the insecticides have a skull and crossbones on them. I mean, that's death. So why should the farmer be allowed to be working in that environment that has that kind of a health risk? And this really hit me home one day when I was probably in the field. You can get a lot of thinking done when you're out in the field. You turn your phone off and you just try to think. And I started going through my family history of illnesses in the family. And And quickly, uncle died of prostate cancer. A sister-in-law had cancer. 23-year-old nephew has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. A brother had cancer. I mean, all of these things, it starts to get your brain. Why? What's happening here? Well, that common denominator to me are all of these synthetic inputs. So you have, and the one principle that we've not talked about yet today, and I'm going to talk about it right now, is context. You have to work and do things within your context. It's not only the context of where you are geographically in the world, it's your financial context. How stable are you? It's your mental context. Are you able to do change? Are you willing to take criticism? Because you're going to be criticized when you start doing things that are outside of the so-called norm. So we have to meet people where they are on their journey within their context.
We've got about 5 minutes remaining in this episode, and we are talking with Rick Clark in Warren County, Indiana. Once again, his web address is farmgreen.land. And Mary, I know you've got a question, and I'm going to let you have the last question for Rick. But Rick, I want to ask you about one of the principles of soil health is diversification and integration of livestock if possible. Now, you mentioned the row crops and small grains you produce, but tell me about the livestock, and do you integrate those into your fields?
We do, but not enough. I'm always transparent and honest. We don't have enough people right now, and I don't have enough cattle right now to truly graze them across the landscape. But if you're asking my opinion, and you have the ability to build the infrastructure, get the water, and get the animals, then by all means, you should be rotationally grazing to some kind of a plan. I don't care what plan you pick. There's several good plans out there. I am not a grazing expert, but I will tell you this. When we graze cattle across a field that has a 15 or 16 way cocktail in it, and the next cash crop that we raise behind that field will out yield any other row crop of that same species in any other location that year. So that right there tells me how important the hoof of that animal is to the landscape. So, and I often say that you don't need to have, this does not need to be your cattle. Maybe your neighbor's got cattle, and you go talk to your neighbor and work a deal out for 45 or 60 days, and then you get paid a rate of gain, or you get paid a daily fee, and then you give the cattle back to them. That's a beautiful way to do this. But yes, livestock, the integration of livestock is another principle, and it is a very important principle. Yes.
And Rick, I know we just have a few minutes left, but we spoke some in the last episode about your use of the Haney test.
Yes.
And I remember at Daniel Austin's field day, you talked to about simplicity with soil testing and evaluation. How else do you what other indicators, how do you evaluate your progress, and how do you suggest farmers starting on this journey do that?
Yeah, well, great question. And number one, the first thing to do is, if you have done nothing toward regenerative practices, you need to baseline your farm. That's imperative. What I mean by that is, get a full round of soil samples, um, get take get down all the history you can for every field. What's been the tillage practices? What's been the cash crop rotations? What's been your fertility program? What's been the herbicide? Everything needs to be detailed. Everything. Then that draws your line in the sand. Okay. So now, as we move forward and we start to take away these inputs, we now have our baseline to go back to and say, is this really working? And remember, folks, this isn't about yield. This is not a yield game. This is a return on investment game. So just because you take 20% of your inputs away and your yield drops 5 bushel, that doesn't mean that's a negative thing. You need to run the numbers out to the end and see which one was more profitable. And then you can decide that yes, this is truly working. Did that answer the question good enough?
No, that was wonderful. And I think
Okay.
that baseline piece is so important as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got to remember that. And again, this is all about context, everyone. So how comfortable are you? And I never, ever once have I said you need to farm the way Rick Clark does. I never do that because I don't think this is right now the way we're farming by taking everything away. It's not good enough yet. We have to keep working on this, but I will keep working on it. And I know we're about out of time, but let me tell you the scenario what our farm was at the most profitable, the highest ROI we've ever had is under these conditions right here. We were 100% non-GMO. We were 100% cover crop. We were 100% no-till, and we were 70% reduction of synthetic inputs. That's when this farm was knocking it out of the park. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to take everything away to be fully vested in a profitable future.
Still got about 60 seconds remaining, and we're talking with Rick Clark in Warren County, Indiana. YouTube channels, books, what are your favorites?
I'll be honest with you. I don't read a lot. I've got floaters real bad in my eyes, so reading is a very big challenge. If I'm going to do any reading, it's an audio book. I hate to say this, but there's not a lot of people that farm the way we do. So I do all this on our own. I test, everything's tested here. We get the results here. You know, I like Gabe Brown's book. I like John Kemp's book. I like the Montgomery books. Those are all good to read. I don't do anything on YouTube. I mean, we have a YouTube channel, but I don't look at anything on YouTube. A lot of what we do here is because of our testing regimen that we do. We usually have 6 or 7 tests going on every year.
Well, I know this is a very busy time for you and for a lot of our farm community. Thank you so much for taking some time. You're literally standing out in your field, taking some time to talk with us today. So thank you very much.
We got a nice cover crop coming here already. So yeah, this has been an honor and a privilege. And I want to say again that the people need to understand how important this is, that you folks continue to push the message out, because you are the voice that people hear. And I applaud you for everything you do. So thanks for having me on.
And once again, the web address is farmgreen.land. That's farmgreen.land. For the Soil, a conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org. And if you should have a specific question about soil health, just call your local extension office or your local USDA service center or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of the Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.